We've reached Champions League Group Stage Match Day 4. We've got 9 games on Tuesday this week and another 9 on Wednesday. So let's get into this. I've broken these down into a best bet from Tuesday and Wednesday. 2 different parlays, one from each day. If you want more soccer picks, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. There's even extra weekly members only picks in the community section as well if you become a monthly member. Now, if you want to scoop up some free bonus money before making your Champions League bets, you can check out Bet365, DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM, and others that are all giving out some great new customer promos. If you check out my link, signupexpert.com/shredthespread, I will put that link down in the comments of this video. So let's get into Tuesday's games here. I've picked 2 that I'm going to pair together in a parlay with Liverpool and Bayer Leverkusen. If you take out a 2012 friendly, and the last competitive game between these teams was way back in 2005, so there's not much head-to-head history to go on between them here. Now, this meeting will see ex-Liverpool midfielder Xabi Alonso return to face his old team, now as the manager of Leverkusen. Liverpool, they're 8-1-1 in the EPL after beating Brighton 2-1 on Saturday. Now, to go with a Man City loss, the Reds now have sole possession of first place in the Premier League. The 19 goals they've scored are second in the EPL. The 6 goals they've allowed are first. They did lose defender Ibrahima Konate, though, to an arm injury, though, this weekend. He'll likely miss out here. In all competitions, only a 1-0 loss to Forest back in September stands as Liverpool's only defeat. Overall, they're 13-1-1 this season, undefeated in 11 games, and they've scored multiple goals now in 3 straight. In the Champions League alone, they beat AC Milan 3-1, Bologna 2-0, and RB Leipzig 1-0. Moving on to Leverkusen, they will have 1 extra day of rest, having played on Friday. Now, despite plenty of trends in a game against Stuttgart that had seen them score many goals and concede all season long, it was a surprising 0-0 home draw with Stuttgart. They too lost a defender to injury Friday in Nordi Mukiele. Now, they're currently 4th in German's Bundesliga at 4-4-1, and the average goals per game in their matches is pretty high at 3.9. In the Champions League, Leverkusen beat Feyenoord 4-0, Milan 1-0, and they drew Brest 1-1 last round. Now, they too have only 1 loss in all competitions, and that was way back in August. Overall, they're 9-5-1. And also undefeated in 11 games. However, they have been piling up the draws of late. They've drawn 5 of their last 8 games. The last game's 0-0 with Stuttgart is the only time in 15 games they failed to score, though, this season. To me, this looks like a game where both teams should likely be able to get on the score sheet. Let's go both teams to score. And let's pair it up with Sporting and Manchester City. Portugal's top team, Sporting, will host England's second-place team in Man City. It will also be the last home game for Sporting's manager, Miguel Almiron, before he leaves to join another Manchester team, Manchester United. Now, Sporting just blew out Estoril 5-1 on Friday, and they've been coasting in Portugal right now at 10-0-0. They've outscored their opponents by an incredible 35-3 margin as well. If we look at all competitions this season, they've been nearly unbeatable as well. After losing their first game in the Super Cup to Porto, they've gone on a 14-1-0 run. In the 15 games total, they've amazingly scored multiple goals 14 times. In the Champions League, their 3 results have been a 2-0 win over Lille, 1-1 draw with PSV, and a 2-0 win over Sturm Graz. Man City had a slew of injury concerns this weekend. Some players did return still. They were out: Rodri, Bob, De Bruyne, Grealish, Stones, and Diaz. Likely most of those players should still be out this game as well. A few injured players did return, including Jose Garvidal. They were away to Bournemouth, struggled, being outshot 6-4 in shots on target, fell behind 2-0, could only pull 1 goal back in the 82nd minute, and that was by Guardiola. City went 14 games in all competitions without defeat, but now they've suffered back-to-back 2-1 losses in the span of just a few days. They've also lost to Spurs in the Carabao Cup. They've also conceded now a goal in 4 of 6 and multiple goals in 3 of their past 6. Champions League results have been a 0-0 draw with Inter, a 4-0 win over Bratislava, and a 5-0 win over Sparta Prague. These teams last met in 2022 Champions League play, with City winning 5-0 in Portugal, and then a 0-0 draw back in Manchester. Now, you would always expect City to score, and they've not lost 3 straight games since all the way back in the 2017-18 season. They've also not lost in the Champions League in 26 games if you don't count losses in PKs. Only versus Inter this season have they failed to get on the score sheet, but they look slightly vulnerable right now with back-to-back losses. Sporting are flying themselves at home. They're scoring for fun. They have top goal scorer in their league with Graz with 16 goals in 10 games. They also have 1 extra day of rest over City. I can see this being a great both teams to score game as well. So let's pair these together. Sporting and Man City, both teams to score, with Liverpool and Leverkusen, both teams to score, coming in at plus 152 odds over at Caesars Sportsbook. Now we'll go into Wednesday here to do a best bet parlay picks 3 different games from Wednesday's Champions League games. We'll start it off with Crvena Zvezda versus Barcelona, or Red Star Belgrade against Barcelona, depending how your sportsbook lists it. Now, 2 first-place teams meet here with Red Star, first in Serbia, 12-1-0, who've outscored opponents 43-8. They'll host Barcelona, first in Spain, at 11-0-1. They've outscored their opponents 40-11. This is the first ever meeting between these teams. In this year's Champions League, Red Star advanced past Bodo Glimt after a 2-1 loss and 2-0 win. That's their only Champions League win in 13 games, though, going back over multiple seasons. In fact, they're just 2-17 in recent Champions League games. That's the worst winning percentage of any team that's played at least 20 games. They advanced past Bodo to make the main draw, and since they've lost 2-1 to Benfica, 4-0 to Inter, and 5-1 to Monaco. Now, this will be a huge step up in class, and generally that's proved to be too tough, and that should continue against Barcelona. Barcelona lost to Monaco in the Champions League as well, 2-1, but they were down a man. They then beat Young Boys 5-0, and even blew away Bayern Munich 4-1 last round. In 15 games across all competitions, Barca's 13-0-2. They've scored multiple goals now 13 times. Score multiple goals here, and it should be game, set, match. This should be a blowout for Barca, where they probably score 3, 4, maybe even 5 goals. For the sake of this parlay, I'm just going to throw Barcelona in there on the money line. Certainly you can improve that if you ask them to win by 2 or 3. We'll pair that up with a second result here. Inter Milan and Arsenal. These teams have not met since way back in 2003 Champions League play. Arsenal's EPL title aspirations have been put into question after being winless in 3 games now in the EPL after a 2-0 loss, 2-2 draw, and 1-0 loss this weekend to Newcastle. They're now 5th and 7 points back of 1st. The 11 goals they conceded is still the 4th fewest, though. Their games average 2.8 goals per game, and they're 6-4 to under 2.5 and 3.5 totals. This year's Champions League has seen them draw Atalanta 0-0, beat PSG 2-0, and then Shakhtar Donetsk 1-0. So their Champions League games have been low scoring so far. They could possibly get a boost if captain Martin Odegaard is cleared to return, but it's still uncertain. He didn't make the roster this weekend. Inter's tournament games have seen them with a 0-0 draw with Man City, 4-0 win over Red Star, and a 1-0 win over Young Boys. So they too have relatively been playing to tight games. They sit second in Italy in Serie A after Sunday's 1-0 win over Venezia. They almost ended in a draw in that game. Venezia had a goal called back at the very end of the game. Their games average 3.5 goals per game, so they have been rather higher scoring and conceding goals. They are actually 7-4 to the over in Italy. The 25 goals scored is second most, but they've not been as tight defensively, giving up 14 goals in 11 games. 5 teams have a better defensive mark. Overall, in all comps, they've only lost AC Milan this season, and they are on a ridiculous run of only 4 losses in 56 across all matches, and only 2 of those 4 have come in regulation. Now, the last top-end Serie A versus EPL match we saw was 0-0 with Inter and Man City. This could also possibly be close as well. Inter at home, probably the team should get the win, but I'm going to go with an under here. Let's go under on the alternate total, under 3.5 goals for leg number 2. And then we'll conclude with Stuttgart and Atalanta for leg 3 of Wednesday's Champions League parlay. This is the first ever meeting between the 8th place team in the Bundesliga, Stuttgart, hosting the 3rd place team in Serie A, Atalanta. Stuttgart played to an uncharacteristically low-scoring 0-0 draw with Leverkusen on Friday. Overall, their games average 3.7 goals per game, and they're 7-2 to over 2.5 totals. A look at their season as a whole in all competitions. They've scored in 13 of 15, conceded in 13 of 15, and the both teams to score has gone 11-4. Now, Stuttgart may have only won 1 of 5 recent Bundesliga games, but at home in all competitions, they've not lost a game since going all the way back over a year now in October 2023. In the Champions League this term, they lost to Real Madrid 3-1, drew Sparta Prague 1-1, and then beat Juventus in a huge upset last round 1-0, and even winning on the road. They could be out as many as 8 injured players, but those injuries won't include top scorers Undav or Dimitrovic. No team in Italy, switching over to Atalanta here, has seen more goals in their games than Ladia, whose games average 3.9. They're easily the highest scorers with 29 goals in 11 games, but they've also given up 14. They're 8-3 to over 2.5 totals. However, Atalanta's defense has tightened up in recent weeks. Earlier in the season, they were giving up plenty of goals, but recently that's not been the case. The scoring has still continued, though. In all competitions, they've now not lost in 8 games. They've kept clean sheets in 4 of 5, and they've outscored their opponents 21-2 in their past 7 games. If we just look at the Champions League, they drew Arsenal 0-0, beat Shakhtar 3-0, and drew Celtic 0-0. So they are 1 of 5 teams to still not concede a goal in this tournament. On paper, I think this looks like it could be a game with goals, But Stuttgart coming off a 0-0. Atalanta has been tightening things up defensively. So let's just ask Atalanta to score. Pair that with the under 3.5 with Inter and Arsenal and a Barca win to get what looks like it should be a relatively easy parlay here. 3 games coming in at -122 odds over at Bet365. Those are my 2 picks for Champions League Matchday 4. And what do you like on Tuesday or Wednesday? Are there any straight bets, upsets, parlays that you like? Let me know down there in the comments. Hopefully we all get some winners.